Newspaper headlines during the year 1916 described struggles around the world. Among the sensational headlines of that era were many reports regarding events surrounding a murder in Callaway County, Kentucky. It is a story of a purported extramarital interracial affair. The story of a black man who shot and killed a white law enforcement officer and the lynch mob that wanted to kill him before his trial. It is the story of a Kentucky governor who risked his life in the pursuit of justice, and it is the question of whether justice was served when that suspect was found guilty of murder and subsequently put to death in Kentucky's Eddyville Penitentiary. It is the story of Lube Martin. December 6, 1916. A dispute between Martin and Duguid centered on allegations Martin made in a written testimony to the city of Murray. In it, Martin alleged that Duguid had made advances on Martin's wife. The controversy resulted in Duguid losing his job as town marshal. Threats were made, and Martin feared for his life. The two men encountered each other in front of the train depot on Curd Street, on what is now known as 4th Street.
Martin said, "I started to run from him, and he said, 'Stop, I will kill you, you black son of a bitch.' I told him I had been to Paris working, and he said, 'Come on and go to the office with me.' And I said, 'Mr. Duguid, wait till morning, and I will go there with you.' And he said, 'No, you black son of a bitch. You will go now, or I will take off the top of your head.' And he drawed his pistol on me."
Duguid was a member of a prominent Murray family. The death of a white law enforcement officer at the hands of a black man was met with instant indignation among many in Callaway County. That reputation was exemplified by the rapid succession of events that followed the death of Duguid. Martin was jailed in Humboldt, Tennessee for his safekeeping. A mob formed demanding Martin be turned over to be lynched. The judge and prosecutor of the case were staying at the Murray Hotel, across the street from the Callaway County Courthouse. Outside that hotel, the mob threatened to dynamite the building if the judge did not turn over Lube Martin. A plea to help was communicated to Kentucky Governor A.O. Stanley via telegraph. Quickly upon reaching Murray, Governor Stanley addressed the mob from the steps of the courthouse. Standing with him in solidarity were several prominent members of the community. "I am the governor of the Commonwealth of Kentucky. I'd rather you would tear me limb from limb now than to live to an age of felicity in my failure to do my duty. I'll see that the laws are enforced and enforced with vigor. I'll protect that Negro from mob violence, and I believe in the death penalty too. If cold-blooded murder is committed, then the murderer shall pay with his life."
He defused the situation through what he said. That's pretty impressive. How many people you know that can do that today? It goes back, it's almost like it's Shakespearean in a way. Mark Antony turns the crowd completely around. Instead of supporting Brutus and Cassius, now they want to hang them. In one speech. We don't think of that being realistic, and A.O. Stanley did it.
With the immediate crisis quelled, the matter of a fair trial for Lube Martin was at issue. How could an unbiased jury be assembled in the very jurisdiction where the lynch mob had formed? Under the protection of state troopers, a jury from Christian County heard the trial in the Callaway County Courthouse. None of the witnesses to the shooting could testify, as they were unwilling or unavailable.
Well, they were afraid. I'm sure they were afraid. This was such a sensational trial, and they were going to be testifying for a fellow black that killed a member of a prominent white family, so they didn't want to be involved. And you have that today. It's not just a racial thing. Why Judge Bush didn't move it to Hopkins? To me, that was the critical mistake that was made. He brought a jury in from Christian County. So that jury, when they came into Christian County, were impartial when it comes to the facts of that case. They probably hadn't seen as much of it. They still brought the same racial bias.
Reporter Arthur E. Bailey would write for the Paducah paper. The state built up a strong case, but on the other hand, the defense presented a good case, saying that Martin killed Duguid in defense of his own life. It is the general impression among those familiar with the evidence that the jury will not render a verdict for either death penalty or life sentence.
Despite the efforts of distinguished defense attorney Pat Holt, the jury found Martin to be guilty. The story of Lube Martin is evidence of a larger dilemma. However, we as a society can work together to make a difference in our lifetime. We can choose what we say and how we react to these issues. We can look to examples such as Governor Stanley and those that stood with him in an effort to stem the tide of injustice. But these events were pushed into obscurity and forgotten. Was justice served? If not, have things changed for the better? Common in the world today are news headlines pertaining to racial conflict and prejudice. It is often said that those who do not learn from history are doomed to repeat it.
A number of recent incidents in this country have highlighted how racial tension or bias, even what social scientists call unconscious bias, can escalate.
Turning to another major story we're following tonight, over 6 months after the fatal officer-involved shooting of Michael Brown in Ferguson, Missouri ignited a national outcry. We've learned details from a Justice Department report expected to be released tomorrow. That report accuses the Ferguson police and courts of racial bias.
Type of capacity, and the teacher somewhat alluded that segregation might possibly be
If you're
okay.
poor and black and you're standing in front of the court and saying, I can't afford this, I think the court's less likely to listen.
Incidents in this country have highlighted how racial
This
tension
after an
or
employee
bias,
in April
even
called the
what
police on
social
two black
scientists
men who
call
were sitting in the
unconscious
store and had
bias,
not yet
can escalate.
purchased anything.
Members of a University of Oklahoma fraternity chapter spewing a racist chant referencing lynching. The target was black students, but the hurt has been universal. On that campus tonight, widespread condemnation of those on that video.